if you want to talk about industrial sustainability. And that requires that we are mindful of the environment as we are also seeking to grow our industries for economic growth and emancipation. And so, if you look at our settings, and as I came here and I was listening to our cherished farmers, there was so much of environmental consciousness in the kind of growth, agricultural growth that they were seeking. What was a little bit missing in the narrative I heard, which maybe it's because I came a little late, and so they may have talked about it, is how they are deploying the tools of technology and innovation to achieve that kind of balance. So the Sustainable Development Goals is well situated within the concept of sustainability and industrial growth, and I agree with virtually everything that she said. Yeah.
Thank you very much for such insights. And so basically we want to be sure of how companies can balance the economic growth in environmental sustainability.
Yeah, I think let's take for instance my constituency, where we have a company like Newmont that's mining. The Ahafo North Mines, which was opened last week by the candidacy of Otumfuo. Newmont is a very big company that is growing, but it's also mindful of the environment. So in the operations of Newmont, for instance, there is this conscious effort to embark on afforestation. And so there's so much going on in my constituency now with Newmont, where they are recruiting young people and farmers to plant trees to ensure that the forest that is degraded or what is going to be affected by the mining operations is restored. So that is one way to go about that. There are companies that are also deploying technological innovations to switch in terms of power production. In Ghana these days, there are a lot of companies that are using green energy and solar panels and all of that to ensure that we don't, just dump carbon into the ecosystem to pollute the environment. So whilst they are producing, they are seeking to make all the profits. That's why they are doing business anyway. They are also conscious of the fact that they have to use inputs that are environmental friendly and will sustain lives, because at the end of the day, if you grow your industry and the consumption part of the whole chain is not ready to consume what you produce, you don't make profit. And my professors, economics professors are here, they will tell you. So it should be a conscious effort and a collective responsibility to ensure that once you are growing, you are mindful of the environment. And I think there are a lot of a plethora of companies and industries in Ghana and Africa who are innovating to deploy the best environmental friendly practices, and at the same time using some agricultural tools like afforestation and all of that to ensure that the environment is clean.
Dr. Marian, what's your take on that?
Okay, so I'll add to what Honorable has shared. So for us in industry, we should look at adapting the circular economic principle. So we find ourselves in a place where we take, we use, and we dispose. But how do we shift from that to reuse, recycle, and regenerate? Because we have so much filth in our system now because of this model that we are operating. So if we can shift from that model, it will really help us. Then we can also invest in green technologies. I think Honorable has already mentioned that we should not only think about the use of electricity as a source of energy, but there are other renewable sources of energy that we have. In our parts of the world, the sun is, something that God has given to us. How do we leverage on that to be able to improve on solar energy? Now, I see a lot of industries putting on solar panels, even individuals at homes. So it is something that we can explore. Wind energy is also something we can also explore. Then in business, how do we integrate sustainability in the core business principle? So we all have KPIs. How do we ensure that those at the top, the executives, have some sustainability KPIs linked to their bonuses. Because if I'm an executive in my company and I know at the end of the year, my bonus is going to be linked to the carbon emission of my company, I would make sure coming down to the last person, even to the cleaner, we are all putting in place sustainability measures. And also we can look at the measuring and reporting of these environmental impacts. So we have the life cycle assessment and also the ESG, that's the environment, social and governance reporting. If you have a company and you want to attract sustainability-driven investors or investments, you would want to have these systems in place because these investors want to see what the impact of your company has on the environment. And to generate trust and transparency, you would want to have these measures in place so that you are able to show them, in this year, this was the impact of my company on the environment. Or you can even compare it. Maybe in 2023, the impact was this percentage. In 2024, because of this and this and that we put in place, we have been able to reduce the impact that we have on the environment by this percentage. So this is what I would add. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I love the way you break it down for us to understand. And it looks as if you actually entered the third question I was about to ask for some examples.
Okay.
And so probably I would like Dr. Boako to actually add some examples that we have seen.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the countries around us, for instance, in Rwanda, the government recently banned single-use plastic for paper. That is something that I talked about even somewhere last week in a cleanup exercise in my constituency. What I have observed, and that's common amongst all of us, that the waste that is generated in Ghana has a large component of solid waste. People have their used up televisions and they dump them anywhere, cooking utensils and all of that. And these are the wastes that are choking our gutters. If it were left with the biodegradable ones and just the normal soil, if even water or rain could just dissolve them and we are gone. We also have a lot of plastics in our system. So what Rwanda has done is something that I think Ghana can also follow. In Kenya, as we have mentioned already, about 80 to 90% of their electricity mix is tilted towards green and the renewable sources of energy. And I think gradually, Ghana too, we are getting there. I've seen a couple of government institutions that are focusing on renewable energy now. Others are using solar. Individuals, these days, if you are flying, entering Accra and Kumasi, it's not so much in Kumasi, but in Accra, you will see so many buildings with solar panels being used. I personally have my house fully solar. I mean, I use this solar throughout, and I think it's the best. It's cost effective, and it also saves the environment. There are other areas that we can explore, and that is in agricultural industrial sustainability sector. And I have seen a couple of farmers deploying a lot of the sustainable and environmental friendly measures to do agriculture. We know of a few setups and companies and farms in Ghana whereby when you go, you'll be amazed the level of technological adaptation and the use of technology to power their processes and all of that. And so I think it's so common these days in Ghana to see that people are highly environmentally conscious and not just conscious in an ordinary lifestyle manner, but conscious in the way that we are investing and also using a lot of resources to achieve environmental sustainability. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think that my co-moderator also have some few questions to ask.
Thank you so much for the questions. But then to link to what you've been discussing so far, as Nananu were telling us, that is at the individual level. For most of the things that we've talked about is at the organizational level. But how do we also inculcate this sustainability practices into our farming practices, into the individual issues that we do in the environment, to be able to make sure that even our health, because to some extent we are only looking at the city centers, but then for what we discuss with them, if we are not careful, it comes back to even probably kill us, if I'm not wrong.
Okay, so on that front, a lot of education and sensitization has to be done. And the institutions are there to be able to give the farmers the right practices that they should embark on. So I'm going to go into a very sensitive area with the galamsey and the fact that now all our water sources are affected. You know, the cyanide that is used in the washing of the ore, it seeps into the soil and into even the crops that we are growing. And we may not be thinking about that, but the long-term effect that it will have on us, because these days people come up with all sorts of diseases and you wonder where are they coming from. So yes, there has to be a lot of education and sensitization on some of the sustainable practices that we can do to help us in agriculture, because you know Ghana is known for agriculture, but the young ones are really not interested in going into agriculture. When we finish, we want the white collar jobs because we feel agriculture is too some way. I don't know how to put it, but you know, there's a lot of sensitization that can be done on sustainability, on agricultural practices in general, to even make it more attractive to some of us who may not even want to go into agriculture.
Yes, I think, you know, a lot of these things we are talking about can only come about these days through technology. And our level of technology or technological adoption varies across different people. And so if you want to recommend a practice that is technologically inclined to people who are not already exposed to it by way of experience because of school they attended or because of a house they lived in before, it becomes difficult. And I use myself as an example. When I decided to do 100% solar, and for the last 12 months, I don't remember the last time I switched to ECG, 100% solar. There were a lot of even friends who discouraged me. And some will cite examples of, oh, I heard this person did it and it didn't work, this person did it and it didn't work. So you find yourself within a certain scope of an environment whereby people's adoption for technological innovation is not that high. So that kind of discouragement sets in. And so even if you want to have that practice, you know, at home, you are likely to have your husband or your wife suggest other means to you. So education is so key and very important. But I've come to realize that if you do it and you do it well too, you save a lot of money. Because I know friends who are 100% on solar and produce more than they need, and they are making arrangement with ECG to even sell some to them. So that is one aspect of it. Then also the cost of it. Because most of the things that we want to use to do agriculture and stuff are not things that have large supply chains in the country. And so the element of monopoly is in, and the only person who has access to those, agriculture, technology and stuff would want to price it the way he wants because of the market is monopolized. And so we also need to intensify the market diversification in some of these areas so that the chain is not just cartelized, but have so many people within And that brings down eases up the issue of cost. So whilst we are educating, then we look at the cost component of the whole thing. And then also how readily your immediate surrounding is prepared to accept that. Because I can imagine the farmer who has been educated on a certain practice and wants to implement that, and goes to the community and even talks to the assemblyman about it, and the first thing is to discourage, oh, no, this one there don't work, you understand? This one has risk associated with it. So we need, and that's why we are here as scholars and as academics, to have the knowledge and also disseminate. So we should not just let the knowledge we have land or just end in the bookshelves and the libraries on our computers and on the internet, but also begin to educate people. And I'm sure as more and more people become aware of the essence of what we are trying to do in terms of sustainability, using energy or using innovation to balance it, we will begin to get closer to that. But until then, it's a bit difficult these days when you want to introduce new ideas.
Thank you so much, Honorable. I'm happy with what the answers that you gave us, but let me put you on the spot a bit. You are a technocrat and also, if I should say, a politician now. What policies do you think probably could be implemented or put in place to ensure that some of the things that you suggested to us can really sit down to the individual and then also our community? And as Dr. Marian said, Galamsey has become more or less like a canker, for want of a better word, in our part of the world. What policies would you suggest with your experience in government and then also as a politician? What do you think the policies that the government could come up with? Or maybe if it's from the academia, what should academia also probably do so that if we too should synchronize the two, it should be able to give us an edge over?
Well, I don't think I am capacitated now to give an omnibus policy. I don't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach. So we may have to look at it issue-by-issue basis. You've mentioned Galamsey, and I think we are all conscious of the devastation effects of Galamsey if we don't use the right practices. But I also think that the methods and the how to do it in an environmentally conscious and sustainable manner is quite well documented. And we know it's a question of ensuring that what is the best practice is what people are putting in place. There are two sides of it. There are those who are using the methods that are not acceptable because they don't know the right thing to do. And there are others, which of course I think is the case, who are also very conscious of what is right to be done, but deliberately decide for convenience and for profitability purposes to use what will harm the environment. The question then becomes, how do we ensure that the right thing is done? And that one has to do beyond our level. But in terms of policy-wise, it's also not enough to put the right measures in place and just ask people to apply them. I studied a little bit of sociology here at University in my first year, and I remember the FIRE's 14 principles very well. If you leave human being to his own judgment and conscience, chances are that he will do the wrong thing. You understand? And so there ought to be certain measures put in place as much as possible to prevent discretion on the part of the individual and the human being. And that is why I think that one of the ways that we need to deploy to stop all these haphazard digging and illegal mining is the fact that there ought to be proper geological surveys and study to identify resource-rich areas. Because most of the people who go to do Galamsey, if you come to my constituency now, because there is gold, people have started digging haphazardly. Somebody hears that this area has gold and they go and they start digging. Because they are not certain of the fact that the resource is there. They dig here, they don't get it. They go and dig here, they don't get it. They go to other places and they dig. But if, as a country, we have been able to do proper geological surveys to ensure that this area is gold-rich areas, then the government can decide that we are sending all of you who want to do small-scale mining to this area. These are the regulations. And once you confine them within a certain geographic area, supervision becomes intense, because if the officers get up, they know that they are going to this side. Today, we don't have those areas demarcated, so anybody gets up to go anywhere. And government personnel are constrained in terms of resources. Government does not have money to have thousands and thousands of officers going to inspect. But if we have demarcated, then any noise anywhere else beyond the areas demarcated by government will be considered as an illegal activity. So these are the things that, from the government side, we need to put in place to ensure that people go to do what and they get what they want. Because if they do and they don't get it, they don't make profit, also they become wild. And the next time they want to do something on it.
Thank you very much, Honorable. For our time is almost up, but then Dr. Marian will answer the last question for us. How can businesses use sustainability as a driver of competitive advantage? To some extent, you mentioned something, that if a CEO is tasked that your carbon footprint will determine your bonus for the year, then maybe you could push the CEO to do something different. But at the organizational level, what do you think can the organization do with sustainability to give it that advantage?
Yes, so in industry, or when a company wants to ensure that sustainability is part of everything that they do, right from the strategic goals, we should have sustainability imprint in there. So most of us in industry see sustainability as a compliance issue. We should move from that mindset to see it as a value driver and not a compliance issue, because if I don't do this, EPA is going to get me. They will not renew my license for me. They can come for audits and then they can do this against me. And one interesting thing about the EPA Act 2025, Act 1124, is that now they have been mandated to even prosecute people that do things that goes against the environment. So because I don't want to have an issue with EPA, I will do this. We should move from that mindset to seeing it as a value driver. Once you move from that mindset to see sustainability as a value driver, everything that you do as a company, all the practices that you engage in, you would have that sustainability consciousness. So all the practices, operations, manufacturing, you'd have the sustainability mindset. And for the multinationals, what we are doing now is sustainability is linked to our KPIs. No matter how the KPI is, there is a sustainability element in there. So you don't have an option than to ensure that whatever I'm doing is sustainable, even if it is selling out there, how sustainable it is. Now, packaging. Multinationals are very conscious about the packaging that they use, because we want to know that whatever we are giving to consumers, the waste that will be generated is something that will not have, a negative impact on the environment. So this is what I'll do.
Thank you so much. I think at this point we will give the opportunity to the audience to also maybe ask questions that may be bothering their mind. Yes, sir, please, there is a hand.
All right, we take Prof's question.
All right, probably it's not a question, but contributing. We talk about leveraging on technological innovations to advance sustainability, but there's another side to it, which I think the industry must take them serious. There should be a balance between the technology that we come out with and then the use of energy. For example, we talk about EV vehicles. If you look at the EV vehicles, it's good. All countries are adopting it. But there have been instances where a place that they manufacture the batteries, there have been serious demonstrations against the companies because they are also creating a lot of environmental hazards. So you solve one problem to create another problem. The use of data centers, for example, I read from the little that one data center, the energy usage of one data center is probably higher than a whole community. So there should be a balance, and in some companies, they have even tried to link the sustainability unit to IT unit so that any technological advancement must be matched with how much you also destroy the environment. So that is key. And then companies must also look at their inbound and outbound activities. So it's not just about what you do in your organization, your sources. What are the activities involved? Where do you get your raw materials? And have you checked that sources, how they are also destroying the environment? And if you have proper sustainability reporting within the company, you realize that all this must be checked. Otherwise, you are rather promoting environmental devastation through your sourcing. And then your distribution. Dr. Marian is with Nestle. Look at your distribution system. How many vehicles are you using? And as the vehicles are going up and down, how much are you contributing towards the emission? So all these are responsibilities. It's good you mention the usage of your product. After using ID milk, where do you put the can? These are all responsibilities of the companies because you are producing them. So the green climate within the organization is so important, and that must be linked to the vision of the company. If the top management don't believe in sustainability, then incorporating sustainability practices within their operations become challenging, and all this can be looked at. I think others want to talk. Thank you.
Please, let's keep our questions or comments very short. All right.
Thank you very much for such a rich discussion. I would like to comment first on the adoption of new or green energy. You know, the adoption rate has been low for among many reasons. Two reasons. The initial cost is really huge. If you take solar energy, it's very attractive. Everybody would like it because it's free energy from the sun, but it costs so much to acquire the panels and the batteries that are needed. And then there's no or low mechanical support. So if it breaks down, if you are using CG, you can easily get an electrician to come and fix it for you and you continue operation. But if you are using solar, it usually takes a longer time, and that is very costly. What can we do? What is being done to reduce that kind of cost so that we'll be able to adapt it? My second one has to do with what Dr. Marian was saying. It struck me. There's the need to create incentives for people to take sustainability seriously. I'm trying to bring that to Galamsey. You know, in the case of Galamsey, we are overmining because there is no costs imposed on the miners. They are taking a lot from the environment, and they are not made to pay for what they are imposing on the environment. So I was wondering, is it possible to adapt this kind of concept to curbing, overmining in the area of Galamsey? Maybe you can start with one or two communities. We could have a group or a committee that will be in charge of reclaiming the land after it has been used, so that the miners could be made to pay something, contribute to that kind of reclamation. Is it something that we could bring in? Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll take a bite of the first one, and Marian will handle the next one. Yes, I agree with you, Prof. You know, it's just like if you're buying a vehicle. These days, people like to buy Toyota vehicles because of accessibility to the parts, because so many people have been using it over time. And relative to maybe BYD or something that doesn't have the market presence, and so the parts and people who are well versed technically to do that are not available. It's the same thing with solar energy as we're talking about. And by the way, just by way of disclosure, I'm the sole distributor of Growat Energy in Ghana, which is a solar company based in the US and China. I love solar energy very well. My partner is also a product of KNUST, who did electrical engineering and the president of the Electrical Engineers Association of Ghana. So I have gone into solar very well. I think we have a challenge in Ghana, West Africa. In fact, in Africa, it is only South Africa that has so many companies who have set up there. This is Nigeria also. In Ghana, you don't have many professionals who are well versed in the area, and that is part of the challenges that you face when new technology comes on board and is being adopted by people. And so I would appreciate the fact that if you want to do solar, you also have to make sure that within your community, for instance in Ashanti region, there are people who have the capabilities and expertise in case there is any fault or anything gone wrong, you can have access to them to do that for you. Other than that, you may want to take your time, because we're talking about electricity, we're talking about life also. The slightest mistake you make, things go to the south. And so these are some of the challenges. But those challenges notwithstanding, we still have to start from somewhere, because if we keep delaying, then we are also delaying the presence of those experts on the market, and it will take forever for us to, come to a convergence point. And so I think the challenges are real, but like any other thing, you have to start from somewhere.
Okay, so sister, I'll take your the second part of your question. Yes, the contribution from you is a good one. One thing that I think as a country we need to take seriously is accountability. People do things, and this nature of Jaimaninka, it's affecting us everywhere, even at the top level. I saw a funny post within the week that when a poor person steals something, he says he's a thief. When a politician steals something, he said it's what financial irregularities, yes, something like that. So yes, if those that are harming our environment are made to be accountable for their action, because the impact of Galamsey, we may not really see the impact now, but for future generations, and that is what sustainability is all about. What Ghana are we leaving for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren about 50, 100, 150 years from now? What kind of water bodies will we have? What kind of soil are we going to have? Is that soil even going to be able to support agriculture, which we are known for? Because we may get to a point where we have to import foods, staple foods that we can grow, even water. So yes, we should take accountability, and we should put measures in place to ensure that people that harm the environment are given some punitive measures. Yes. So yeah, the policymakers, I'm sure maybe will pass this through, Honorable, to take it up there for us. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. My question is, the first one goes to Marian, rather.
Let's give it at one question. We are 5 minutes at please. Just one question.
Mention of the fact that there is a model that was not working. That was what you said. So I was wondering what you're doing about it. Because if